Hello, my name is Kevin McCaig and I'm a water quality engineer with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. In this video, let us explore how we can use Ontario's phosphorus loss calculator called PLATO to estimate just how effective our current field management practices are at preventing or reducing the loss of phosphorus from our cropland. Phosphorus, as you know, is an important crop nutrient, but if we lose a little bit from the field, say even half a pound per acre, it can cause some significant algal growth and water quality concerns downstream. So let me begin by showing you how you can access the new PLATO tool through OMAPRA's AgriSuite software. Now, AgriSuite is a computer application that can work either on your desktop or a mobile device such as a phone or tablet. To find it, just open up your favorite internet web browser. I'm going to use Google Chrome here, so I'm just going to minimize myself here. And here's Google Chrome. I'm going to type in OMAPRA's new AgriSuite, and that'll give us search engine results. Here's the one, Welcome to AgriSuite. I'm going to click on that one, and it lists all the different tools that are in the AgriSuite software. If we slide down a little further, we can see we can continue to those calculators. So let's just click on that button. And this will bring you to the main introductory page for AgriSuite. We have a number of calculators in the tool. Towards the bottom is this one called Phosphorus Loss PLATO Calculator. We'll be developing new ones as time goes on, so that will move around a wee bit. But nevertheless, that's the one that we're going to talk about today. And you can just click on that line right there, and you can open up the Phosphorus Loss Calculator tool. So we could just start right now, start new, and this is the first page for the PLATO tool. Now, you don't need to sign in, but I am going to sign in here at this time because I have an example of one that I want to show you. And so when you first create one, you'll have to make a password when you set up an account. And so that's the first step. And the advantage of signing in is it allows you to save your work. So if you don't sign in, any work you do gets lost in your session. However, if you do sign in, then any work that you've done in the past gets saved and you can access it through and from other tablets or other devices that you may be using. Okay, so that's the first aspect to this. Now, here's some of my work that I've done in the past, and I'm going to bring up this PLATO demonstration file, which is the one that I just want to walk through with you. So here you see the PLATO demonstration. I edited that name. And just by hitting that pencil symbol there. And so that's the start. If you want to go home to the main list, you would just click on that and it would take you to your list again. And so, but if you want to return, you just click on the file that you're interested in. The other thing you'll see is that in the top right here, there's the ability to change language. You can go to the French language or English language. This hamburger menu here, if you hit the drop down there, it allows you to go home as well. You can provide feedback to the developers of this tool. So just you can go in there and it'll send an email to us, or you can sign out to from this particular session in that way as well. So I'll just minimize that. The other thing up here in the top right is the units that you want to work in. So you can work in metric, imperial, or US units. I'm going to work in imperial units today, just for demonstration purposes. Near the top of the display, towards the left, you can see PLATO has three main data entry and display tabs: the Field Information tab, the Phosphorus Loss tab, and the Report tab. PLATO calculates a phosphorus loss risk score on a field-by-field basis. As you know, each of your fields are unique, and those different field characteristics influence naturally the risk of phosphorus leaving that field, despite how you apply phosphorus fertilizers to it. Think of the Field Information tab then as an area where you describe the relatively stable characteristics of that field of interest. Things like its size, its location, the field's dominant soil type, and the general or average soil test level measured in that field. I've entered in some actual values for the demonstration field shown here. So I've got the farm name, obviously, its field name that you give it, the location, including the town, the county, and the township, the soil series that's dominant on that field, and the soil texture then associated with that soil series. The software automatically populates the annual precipitation, but you can override that if you like, if you have some good data records that you would want to feel that it was a better average than what has been given here. Also, there's the phosphorus sodium bicarb soil test that you would enter. I've entered 15 for this particular example. So that's really all you have to do on the field information tab. The field area I've assigned to this is 42 acres. So let's go to the phosphorus loss tab. Input requested on this screen tends to vary more from year to year, or at least be more influenced by the grower's decision. Crop type is a main input. We have a long list of crop options, as you can see from this drop-down list. For this demonstration, I selected grain corn. Notice that you also may often have to select a crop subtype. In this case, the options for corn might be silage corn, sweet corn. I've chosen grain corn in this case, and so you often have to select that at this time. It's also important when applying PLATO to understand the concept of a crop year. A crop year in PLATO terms, and this is true for all our AgriSuite applications, refers to the time period between the day the previous crop was harvested and continues until the date the current crop is harvested. So, for example, say winter wheat was harvested on July 25th on this field, prior to the corn crop that I'm interested in here. The crop year for the corn crop then would cover July 26th through until the day the grain corn is harvested, let's say November 1st. Any fertilization activity that occurs, such as manure application right after the wheat came off in August, would need to be accounted for when arriving at a PLATO score for this year's corn crop. PLATO also asks for a description of the field's subsurface tile drainage system on this screen. Have you systematically tile drained the field? If so, select Systematic on the drop-down list. If you've just placed tiles in select areas of the field needing drainage, then choose Random. And if there are no present tile in the site of any account, then select None. For this example field, it's been systematically tile drained at 30-foot spacings. So I will enter a value of 30 here under tile drain spacing. Next, PLATO asks if there are any permanently vegetated buffers along any open drains or watercourses that run alongside or through the field. If not, or if the field does not even come in contact with any open watercourse feature, leave this buffer value at less than 10 feet or 3 meters if you're in metric. If permanently grass buffers or even grass waterways have been established in or along the key drainage areas of the field, then from the drop-down menu, select the range of width category that best fits your field situation. In this example, so I'm just going to leave it at less than 10 feet. Next, PLATO asks you to enter an estimate of the rate of soil erosion occurring on the field. Now, for most of us, having such a number at our fingertips is unlikely. So just typing in a rate such as 3 or 5 tons per acre, or 2.5 in this case, in this input window, may really be guesswork on our part. However, soil erosion by water is a key mechanism for losing phosphorus from a field, particularly that fraction of phosphorus that is attached to soil particles. Therefore, it's important to estimate the erosion rate as best we can. PLATO provides the user with 2 options for improving your estimate. One is relatively quick and easy, and the second option is more involved, but also more specific and representative of the field. I'll show you both ways here, but keep in mind the second, more detailed method cannot be performed if using PLATO on a mobile phone or tablet. Let me start with the quicker option first. To access it, click on the drop-down arrow here and select Calculate Value. This will bring up a few more windows below these screens, and it'll ask for the maximum slope of the field. Now that's a tough one to decide because there's lots of different field slopes out there. In this example, I'm using a value of 3, and then it also asks you for the tillage method that you're using to establish that corn crop in the year. So I'm going to say that this corn is going to get fall plowed, and then the tillage practice will just be normal up and down slope, no attention to contours or cross slope farming, anything like that, just working across the field on a normal basis. When you enter that information, the software populates an estimated soil erosion, in this case 4.72 tons per acre per year. So that's the relatively quick way, but it's still difficult because there's hundreds of different slopes in the field that you can choose from, and so it's not always easy to estimate that percent slope. The other option, if you select enter value, you will see in the lower right corner here is an entry called estimate using ag maps. If we click on that, it brings up a pop-up window that tells you you can go to ag maps, a GIS-based agricultural mapping website that OMAPPers developed that allows you to estimate the erosion using a tool embedded in that online function. So let's go to that. And so when you click on ag maps, you would end up at a screen that looks like this. There's a disclaimer for entering the ag maps online tool. You would slide down and get I accept, and it brings up a map of Southern Ontario. Then you would locate the particular field that you're interested in. I tend to just search around. I can see the main towns and roads here, so I can generally find my way around. And this particular site is just on the east end of the Wildwood Dam. So I'm going to go zoom in there fairly close. And it's just in this area. There's a field right in this general area here. When I get close, I can go down here and turn on the aerial photography and turn this one off. And this is the particular field I'm interested in right here, this in Zora Township. Now, once you're there, go to this Markup and Printing tab, select Create Map, and then at the bottom of the list of different map types you can make, there's this one called Water Erosion Potential Map. Select it, and it brings up a entry window when you could type in the farm name and the field name and all that type of thing. But the key one here is to define the field boundary for the field that you're interested in. So if you click on this Draw Area button here, that allows you to begin drawing the perimeter of this field that you're interested in getting the soil erosion estimate for. So I'm just going to do that here and find my way around that field. And it also comes back with the total acreage of this field as well. So that's a handy piece of information as you're working away. We're just about done here, just about around the corner. Double click when you get to the end. And you'll notice that there's a black dot sort of goes into the centroid of the area. If you take a look at the left here as it's calculating the erosion here, it fills in or populates the specific information of the lots and concession of that particular field that we've delineated. So we're just in the process of letting it estimate this erosion. It starts to prepare a map for us. And this is a two-dimensional map of the erosion risk potential of that field. And it's really just a description of what's the erosion condition across that field if it was bare soil conditions. So we can see that it's more erosive on this east end of the field than it is towards the northwest area. And that's fine, that's good to know. However, we also need to tell it that it's not bare soil. We do have some crop growing in there. In this particular case, it's corn. So you go to this method to determine C factor and select crop and tillage method. And this is very similar to what you saw in the actual AgriSuite itself, the drop-down menu for the different crops. And I'm going to select grain corn as the crop and the tillage method. And let's try fall plow as we said we were doing, and then recalculate. So it will go off then and calculate the erosion rate now with the condition that we have a corn crop growing on that field. It's not the bare soil or the inherent risk, but the risk with that crop growing in the field. You'll also notice as we slide down a wee bit here that first map was called the inherent water erosion potential map. And that's what's being displayed right now. But if I click on this little radio button here, we will display the annual water erosion estimate, assuming a corn grain fall plowed situation. So let's click on that. And there's our erosion potential across that field in corn grain. It also displays what the annual average estimated soil loss is across that field. So on average, it's 2.5 tons per acre per year. It's more erosive on this end, obviously, than on this end. But on average, it's 2.5 tons per acre per year. Now remember that number. We'll take that manually, take it back to PLATO and enter it in as our erosion estimate. But before I leave here, I just want to show you, well, what would a tillage practice change mean? So let's, instead of fall plowing, let's say they were going to strip till this field. So we'll choose zone till, representative of strip tillage, and let's then recalculate our soil loss based on assuming that the corn is going to get established as a strip till system. So we'll give it a bit of time to do its calculation here. And it comes back, and you can see you've definitely controlled some of the erosion to some extent. It's good to see in the low to very low range the erosion losses, and so that has dropped significantly now with the zone till. And in fact, it says the mean average annual soil loss across that field is only 0.6 tons per acre per year. So remember that number as well. We had the 2.5 tons per acre per year with the fall plow, but with zone till, we have 0.6 tons per acre per year. So there's some ways to get that estimate of soil erosion. So we go back then to the PLATO inputs screen. I'm going to close this pop-up window for Ag Maps, and we could just type in that value of 2.5 for the fall plowed corn in this case. Now that we have provided PLATO with field characteristics information, it can calculate one of the two components of the total phosphorus loss index, the field characteristic index. The summary on the right side of the screen here displays the result of the field characteristic index. It is 50.2 for this field. If we click on the information circle beside this value, we can learn more as to how this value came about and what is exactly associated with this score. For this example, it is showing that much of the 50.2 score is coming from phosphorus losses that are associated with particulate phosphorus leaving the field, overland, across the soil surface. Some is going through the tile, but not much. This would suggest that if we wanted to lower the phosphorus loss risk score, we need to lower particulate phosphorus loss, which really means we need to reduce the rate of soil erosion and sediment leaving the field. If you click on the yellow information button, it gives you some suggestions on how you can reduce that field characteristic index. And indeed, it suggests that you want to do some steps to reduce soil erosion, maybe do things like cover cropping, establishing grass waterways or a vegetative buffer along the field edge, those types of things. So let's remember when we were in the Ag Maps tool that we said if we strip tilled this field, our soil loss would only be 0.6 tons per acre per year. So let's enter that estimated soil value in and then see what this result is in terms of a field characteristic score. Notice that we've dropped from 50.2 down to 15.3, significantly lowering that field characteristic index, and that will go a long way to reducing our total phosphorus index score. So that's an example of how you might use that information and how soil erosion can affect this phosphorus loss index. For now, though, I'm going to return to that fall plow example, as that's what the producer is currently doing, and we want to evaluate his current practices. Next, we go to the application loss index section, and this is when we start to give the software some information on what material and what manure and what fertilizer applications are going on this field. So we're going to add material applications or manures, and we're going to add fertilizer. Now we only have to worry about the fertilizers that contain phosphorus. So in my case, in this field, we're going to put on some liquid hog manure in the fall. 3 days before we plow, we put in some liquid hog manure, and I'm going to put it on at a rate of 5,000 gallons per acre. So we'd enter that information in. Now, to get this liquid hog, I put in a couple different manure types in here. If you wanted to add a material type, you would just click on this button here, and then you could select any main animal group there and the type of manure, whether it's solid or liquid, and you could set up your own manure analysis and manure inputs in that way. So we got liquid hog put on with a tanker in the early fall on the 23rd of October at 5,000 gallons per acre. So that's one input. The other one is we're putting some fertilizer with the planter on. Right, here's a description of that. We're putting some phosphorus fertilizer, say some 624-24 to 100 pounds per acre. And we're going to place that with the planter. So of all the different options incorporating or bare soil applications, it's with the planter and therefore ejected. And so you can see on the right side then it summarizes the contributions of that particular application to this phosphorus application loss index, and it's fairly low. We put on 25 pounds per acre, but there's a BIC coming through the tile, very minimal, and the total is very little coming from the surface, mainly because it was injected. So that's an example there. Let's take a look at that tanker one just as an alternative or to compare. We put on a lot more phosphorus to begin with that 5,000 gallons per acre of hog manure. We're getting some from the surface contributing, so potential for overland losses that way, and some is contributing through the tile system as well. And so again, we can look at this information button here, and it can give us ideas of how we could potentially reduce that application loss number. So things like injecting the manure. So maybe I incorporated in 3 days, maybe not the best. If we worked it in a little sooner or we injected it, that could reduce things. Timing is also important. So when are those tiles not running and when's the lower risk? So if I incorporated, let's say I injected that manure, for example, then I can drop it down quite significantly. If I switch to the spring, so let's switch this to a spring period, May 1st. Now the tiles are running, but we're still not too bad a loss. We're still losing some through the tile again, but and we've worked it in 3 days. If I worked it in 1 day, it would drop it down a bit more. All those types of things that we can do to change that number. Now I'm going to change it back to our early fall again, because that's what this producer is doing. And so we want to see what score he gets from that particular practice that they're currently following. So there we go. Early fall, 3 days, 5,000 gallons per acre. Good. Notice I added the manure application using the add material application button, and to add that fertilizer application, in this case banding with the planter, it would just be a matter of selecting this button and putting in the correct information. So we have 2 different application events for this corn crop. That's all we need to worry about. We don't need to worry about the nitrogen because we're doing the phosphorus loss. And so we're done making the fertilizer application entries here. So now we can go over to the right side and see what the application loss index is. So this is specific to those 2 applications, and it came out to a value of 28.3. We now have the field characteristic index, which is the inherent characteristics of the field itself, and then the results as a result of that particular way that we're putting the fertilizers on in that field. So if I want to see a good summary of this field, we can go to the final tab, which is the report tab. Let's click on that. And it gives us a summary of the field area, the soil series, and the information that we put in at the start, the phosphorus loss description in terms of is it tile drain, the spacing, the erosion rates that we're using, those types of things, and then the actual fertilizer application events. And at the bottom, we have our summary or our index score here. So 50.2 for the field characteristic index, 28.3 for the phosphorus loss application index, and for a total of 78.5. This then, we have a sliding scale here, adds up, and it gives us a low rating. So what does a risk score of low actually mean anyway? Well, PLATO's risk categories are very low, low, moderate, high, or very high. In general, a risk score of low or very low means that the phosphorus loss you're likely to experience from the field of interest is as low or lower than what at least 50% of other farm colleagues will experience on their fields. In other words, if you can keep your phosphorus loss risk score on each field to low or very low, you're doing better than the majority of your colleagues. If you have scores of moderate or higher, there is room to improve. You can explore the causes and the options for improving the score with the PLATO tool. There's one last input change I want to show you before we finish off. What is the impact of soil test phosphorus on the phosphorus loss risk? Well, again, each field is unique, and you will want to answer that question using PLATO for your own fields. But let us look at this demonstration field. Remember, my current phosphorus loss score is 78.5. If we go back to the field information screen, and we change the phosphorus soil test from 15 to say 60, how is that going to affect our phosphorus loss score? So let's go back here to the phosphorus loss tab, and we can look at the summary screen here, and you can see it's gone from 78.3 up to 91.1. Now we're still in a low category, but we're getting close to that medium range. So this is just an example of how you can use PLATO to try some of those what-if scenarios for your field and management options. So that is a detailed overview of how the Phosphorus Loss Index tool PLATO works and how you can use it to confirm or improve your phosphorus management practices. Remember too that the PLATO score is automatically calculated for each field and for each year when you prepare a field management plan in OMAPRA's new AgriSuite Field Management Plan software tool. In this way, you can see how phosphorus loss risk changes from year to year as you move through your crop rotation on a field. If you have any further questions, just click on the Information Contact button on the main menu, right here, and phone us at the Contact Center at the toll-free number of 1-877-424-1300, or email us at ag.info.omapra@ontario.ca. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.